Okay, about to go live.
Hit it.
1 minute early.
We are live.
Good evening, everybody. Councillors, officers, clerk in attendance to our meeting. Chearsley Parish Council, Monday the 15th of February at 7:30 p.m. Just passing now. Okay, let's just move straight into the agenda. And initially we have a slot for parishioners' question time. So Helen, I don't know, or councillors, officers, if you have anything that we need to be discussing from our parishioners.
Nothing that's not covered in the meeting, I think.
Under correspondence, I guess, Paul, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then I accept that and move straight to apologies for absence. And I don't think we have any apologies for absence. Everyone seems to be present and correct. Helen?
Yeah, that's correct. No apology.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Under the declarations of interest, in accordance with section 33 and 2352 of the Localism Act 2011, councillors to declare any personal, prejudicial or pecuniary interest pertaining to the agenda. Does anybody have anything they wish to disclose?
No.
No.
None.
That's a unanimous none. Thank you. Approval of the minutes, Monday the 18th of January 2021.
Yeah.
Could I have a proposer and a seconder?
I propose those as fine.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
And John Lewis. Thank you. Matters arising from those previous minutes. Helen.
Right, so the first action point was on yourself, Nick, to talk to Terry Gadsby regarding levelling off of the path by the donkey fields and perhaps putting down wood chippings because it's wet, slippery and muddy.
Yes, I've had some correspondence with Terry and she responded to me a couple of weeks ago with some questions and some thoughts and agreements or not agreements. I've subsequently written again back to her with a much fuller brief as to what it is we're trying to achieve and with some recommendations. And I've not heard back from Terry on that particular note that I sent. And I did send a reminder to her yesterday because she then contacted me, contacted us about the issues with regards the potential car parking slot on the piece of land opposite her house. And I did copy everyone in. Hopefully you had that response, just confirming that she was correct in terms of us opposing it, and also if they were to go ahead themselves, they would have to have full planning permission. So I did remind her in that note as well. I think you'll have seen at the bottom of it, by the way, any more thoughts on that footpath. So the thing is running.
Okay, so that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one was, I think this has been done, Nick, where you were going to follow up with the parishioner who raised the query about the incident with the dog.
Yes, I went to see the lady in question, as I did in the same afternoon to see the occupants of the last house on Lower Green Lane on the right, about a speeding VW Golf GTI in the village. Both counts, they were very reasonable, appreciative of the fact that I took the time to go and confront them, or not confront them, but to stand in front of them and have a reasonable conversation. The VW Golf, the driver, I believe, is the son, possibly the daughter, the son of the daughter. All have been very apologetic, and since then we've not had any further issues from parishioners complaining about the speed of that vehicle. And the lady in question has been more than reasonable and accepts what was said, understands it's not necessarily a parish council matter, but very, very appreciative that we as a team had taken the time to talk it through and get back to her. So the line has been drawn under that, and I don't expect any further feedback.
Okay, and then the next one is around cycle routes. So Nick, again, to circulate the report from Haddenham Parish Council regarding a potential cycleway from Haddenham to Tame.
I was obviously off the ball this particular evening on the 18th of January, because I seem to be ending up with lots of actions. I must make a note this evening to pass someone or delegate them out somewhere. Yeah, I have followed up on that as well. And in fact, John, I have circulated that I know to John and John. Is that right?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I don't know what. I don't know why
seen
that.
something on it.
I know. I think I sent it to John Lewis and John Howard, and for some reason, I haven't forwarded it on to the rest of the councillors, and I don't know why. But John, sorry, would you mind just passing it on to the guys and girls? All right, I can send it out again, but I know it's gone out to two of you. Yeah,
I'm trying to think what note that was, Nick.
it's the study, the action plan and study that was commissioned with Haddenham Parish Council on the cycleway footpath routeways to Haddenham, from Haddenham to Tame.
By a company called Sustrans. I'll
Yeah.
circulate it, Nick. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll do
It was
Yeah.
some Sustrans. It was a heck of a good report. John, have you not had it, John Lewis?
Well, do you know, Nick, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I've certainly seen something on cycling, but I can't remember what it was.
All
now.
right. Well, John Howard, if you don't mind circulating.
No,
to the team.
I'll whiz it around to people. Yeah, it's a very comprehensive report. I mean, I think, as far as I'm aware, there are still numerous unresolved issues about it. But anyway, the work goes on, and
Hang on a second. My mistake. I did only send it to John Howard. I've scribbled some notes on it, saying initially to John Howard as a result of the work you're doing with Mike Haybrook. So, okay, that's fair enough. John, if you don't mind, my apologies. I was trying to keep you up in the loop earlier.
yeah.
Okay, we'll circulate. that.
I'll send it to Mike as well. I think he might have seen it. I think I've heard him refer to it before, but I will,
Yeah.
as a precaution, I'll include him on the
Yeah.
on the
And
circular.
David Truesdale is quite sensitive about the document as well, in terms of the amount of work Hadden put into it too, and just asked for it to be treated with confidentiality and respect, because there's quite a lot of sensitive information in it, as I understand or saw. But I think, and I've put a call out to David again, John, reference Mike Haybrook and how we might integrate him and make him more comfortable in the capacity of supporting and representing on the cycle party.
Fine.
Okay.
Right, so the next one is footpath signs. Anthony, to check if any footpath signs need replacing.
Well, I have got a few. I think the other thing we asked for, if anybody would want to put any forward for me to look at, I would have a look at them as well. I haven't heard nobody's come back to me and said there's any particular ones, so I've got a few. And if nobody's got any more, I shall see what I can do about getting them fixed.
Okay. Yeah, if we could get some sort of a listing, Anthony,
Yeah.
that we could all have a look at, and then maybe even if you sent that out for people to comment on, because I think once you've got something in front of you with, I don't know, a dozen signs or something, or some pics. I mean, the last ones you did of footpaths and styles was fantastic, because we got a complete record of what it was we were trying to look at.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah.
Thanks, Anthony. That'd be brilliant.
Okay, so Anthony will circulate the ones that need replacing to everybody to have a look at.
Yeah, or need attention or whatever. Yeah.
Just out of interest, are these being replaced because they're unreadable or what? 'Cause I mean, a footpath sign's a footpath sign, and some of them have lost they don't look white, but it still says public footpath on it. I'm just wondering what the issue is. Why they need replacing with brand new signs. That's me not being contentious, but I'm just interested because they seem adequate to me.
Well, I think a lot of them have like the circular walk and stuff like that. And a lot of those have faded.
Yeah.
I would hope the Bucks County Council are going to do it for us.
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, I agree on the circular walk things. Some of those you can't see properly, but I've made a point over the last sort of month, wherever I've been, which seems to be most of the fields around here that you can get into without drowning. The public footpath ones look all right, but a lot of the circular walk signs definitely are fading, stroke disappearing. So I agree on that. Yeah.
There's the main one. Yep.
Excuse me. Richard, can I call you back, please? Thanks. Cheers. Bye. Okay. Next one, please, Helen.
So the next one's village signposts. Nick, to complete the appropriate form to request new pedestrian signs.
Well, it's slightly incorrect. I think I may need to. I've done nothing about it deliberately. This is all we're talking about is the one sign on the small quadrangle, if you like, that piece of land opposite the old plough, which has a grey pole with some rideway, cycleway signs on. And I didn't see it at the moment as a rather key priority, so I have not followed that through at the moment. It can stay on the list, it needs to be done, but I don't see it as a priority right now with the rest of the things on our agenda.
So do you want me to leave it on matters arising, or so just carry it forward? Just
leave it, carry it forward until such time as I can move it up the list.
Okay. So the next point is around the smaller bin lorries in the lanes. Anthony to photograph the smaller bin lorry which has been seen in the lanes, and Nick to contact refuse at Bucks Council.
Yeah, I think on both counts that's been achieved. They have confirmed that wherever possible they use smaller lorries, and in fact Anthony's been able to photograph now on several occasions the particular lorry van truck in question that confirms they are using the proper vehicle. Anthony, I think
only down our road. Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's got any other information.
The only other observation I'd make there is the lorries didn't seem huge, but they also stop at appropriate points and then run the last bit. So down School Lane, for example, they don't go right down to the bottom of that. They stop at a point, and then there's plenty of turning space there, and go back again. And I think they seem to be very sensitive. I had a word with the driver, and they are very sensitive to the verges and everything, and they're very careful. So I would say that's well in hand.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then the next one is a few pages on, and that's which I know this has been done. John Howard to draft a note to circulate to the village regarding the Chearsley Business Director. I believe that's been done.
Yes, it has, and I've had a reasonable response. About a dozen people have signed up. I'm going to do a sort of a final chase around probably in the next week or so, and then probably have a chat with Keith and John about how best we can put all the information together. I think perhaps one or two are probably waiting. Well, I don't know what we're going to hear on the 22nd of February, but obviously we have a slightly unreal situation now for a number of businesses. So I think what I probably need to stress to people is that if they, do register with us, but if you have occasion to change that information, that in way events unfold in the next few months, it won't be a problem. Anyway, I'll keep working on it.
Thanks, John.
Okay. And the next one was regarding the walnut tree opposite the Grist's house at the top of Shuts Lane, and it was Ian to discuss with Four Seasons.
Yeah, Paul and I met the guy from Four Seasons, excuse me, and he wrote back saying that in his opinion, it was not sensible to undertake a huge amount of pruning and just do it, keep it trimmed back every 2 or 3 years. And Paul, you, I think, wrote to John Lewis. And
Yeah, no,
Lewis
John. I think
responded to
John has been in touch with the Grists. I think perhaps John will update on that.
Yes, I wrote to them after I received Matt's 4 Seasons letter via Paul. I made a further inquiry with Matt as well regarding root growth, which was one of the things that the Grists had referenced in their report, and I gave them a response based on the advice from 4 Seasons. I haven't heard anything back from them as yet. I think I probably copied that round to everybody.
You did, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And then the final point, which I know has been done as well, was Julia to report on Fix My Street about the road liable to flooding sign on Chiltern Road, which I know has been done.
We've also got that as an item on the agenda, number 9.
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay.
That's surprising.
We got an action with Jules.
Yeah.
Do we fix my street?
Yeah, I did do it.
Said that, yeah.
Oh, done. Sorry. Just on that front, I did suggest in our informal discussions that if you make a note, Helen, I was going to write a personal thank you note from the Parish Council to Mr. and Mrs. Allen. I think is it Caroline?
Mole.
Caroline Mole.
Rob Mole and his wife, yeah.
Rob and Caroline, yeah. To just say a big thank you from us for the work they've done and under difficult circumstances sometimes. So if you just make a note for me to follow that through. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it. So in that case, matters arising have been concluded, and we move straight into planning with Paul.
Okay, well, we only had one application to consider this month, and that was the conversion, the extension and alteration of the garage in the grounds of Longhouse. We had previously had applications in May and November on this property, and at that time opposed the proposals and basically agreed with the historic building officers' view that would have opposed it as well. The latest application has made some very slight modifications, but our primary concern as a council was the fact that the footprint was extended, and we felt that was inappropriate, A, for the integrity of the building itself, but probably more so for the negative effect it had on the Grade 2 listed building next door, which would have completely cut, that's West End Cottage, would have diminished the light coming in through the lounge, dining room and kitchen windows. So in reviewing the new application, we've ended up with the same conclusion, which is unanimously throughout the Parish Council to oppose the application. That was submitted, haven't got the date, but it was submitted about a week ago to the ABDC Planning Authority. That's the only planning matter.
Thanks, Paul. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, correspondence, Helen?
So there's 2 pieces of correspondence. So I'll read the first one out. So that's regarding parking at the top of Lower School Lane. Can I ask the Parish Council to ask the residents who park at the top of Lower School Lane not to park on the pavement opposite Bernard's Close? This evening, as a car came down School Lane, I was unable to walk on the pavement and had to use the road. It was dark and a driver would have found it difficult to see a pedestrian. Most cars are parked well, but vans park on the pavement. This is especially dangerous for children. So that was received at the end of January.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with the correspondent on that, because having walked that lane quite a bit in the last few weeks, I've noticed also cars and vans that are encroaching upon the pavement and not even leaving a sort of a gap for one person to walk through, on a couple of occasions right up against the bank. So we've either got to put some signage in there, which again, looking at village clutter, I know is not always a favourite, or we have to put some leaflets through people's doors in the location. You know, I mean, there's been building works going on around and about that area. It probably hasn't helped with pressures on them getting their deliveries and goods in, but it's something we should tackle because it is an illegal exercise anyway. So, you know, if the police came down, they could potentially be fined, and I certainly don't want to go down that route.
Do we know, are these vans and lorries that are doing with the old house or elsewhere?
Well, I think that, you know, I don't want to point the finger at any particular.
No, well, the only reason I asked the question is that, you know, now that the building works progress there, I have noticed vans, they just automatically park outside. Maybe it's time to see whether off-site, or they could be on-site rather, you know, to take them off the road. So
Yeah,
maybe it's worthwhile just having a word
with who?
With the owners of the old house and say, would it be possible, you know, to take the Harris fencing down so that you know, if vans are parking down there continuously, they could be parked off the road.
Well, let's assume it's just them, Paul. I'm trying to.
No, that's why I said. That's why I asked the question. Yeah. But if it is theirs, and very often it is, because I've come across those before. It would be just useful if they were able to, but they just automatically park down there. Not always on the pavement, to be fair, but they do always, you know, park down there, and it's quite a cluttered area at the best of times.
Any other thoughts, please?
The real problem, to answer Paul's point, is not so much during the daytime, because during the daytime people can see. It's at night time, and right. That, I have to say, is more residents than workmen.
Well, I mean, we could do a leaflet drop, a small leaflet drop, knock on a door or two. What would you prefer to?
Well, this will be going out in the minutes. Can we, you know, I wonder if this is going to make a point to people, and perhaps, you know, let's see if there's a response. As you know, there's a lot of people do listen into the this Zoom meeting. Hello, everybody. Maybe it's one that word of mouth could actually see some action here, rather than having to do, you know, too much extra work on it.
Keith, thanks, Paul.
Or maybe put a leaflet under the wiper blade of the actual car. That's very specific.
I think something
a friendly note from the parish council.
Yeah, I think as long as it's courteous and it applies to everyone down there.
Just explaining the problem.
Yeah. Shall we give that a go then? Paul's suggestion, excellent. Yeah, we can minute this as being a real matter for concern, and maybe even highlight it in bold or underline or whatever to reinforce the message, Helen. Asking for all those people in that locality that may be residents, visitors, you name it, could understand the need for keeping the pavements clear both day and night. I think that's a good attack. And secondly, as you said, Keith, maybe we could get a small leaflet together to put under the doors, and if on travels, all of us actually. There's no reason why you know, when we're all walking the area, there's no reason why we can't see people. I see people in Berners Close all the time. I see the old house pretty much a lot, you know, all that sort of area. So we can all make an effort, I think, to communicate nicely. Come on, let's sort this out.
Yeah.
Okay. And if necessary, put me down then, Helen, to produce a simple leaflet. Which I'm assuming everyone will be happy with. I'm not going to circulate it for, you know, board approval. I think
happy with that.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So you're producing a leaflet to go sort of either on windscreens or through doors?
Yeah, just to try and remind people of what we're trying to achieve. Okay, thank you. Signs on the green, I think, was one on I've got
Yeah, so if I just read out the correspondence that was received. Dear council members, I am appalled that the parish council has turned a blind eye to the plastic sign on the green, which is in a conservation area. It was also said at the meeting that Bucks Council are not really bothered about the signs in a conservation area on the green. Is this true? The parish council have renegated on their original decision when the previous metal stroke plastic signs were removed and wooden ones put in their place. It is the principle of the matter. Please can this gambling sign, which is on the green, be removed? It does not say village shop. Please bring this letter up at the next parish meeting.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, we have dealt with this matter at the last meeting. So I presume this is a further inquiry on the same subject.
Yeah, it was received the day after the last meeting.
Right. Well, if I remember rightly, we had a discussion about this, and I think unanimously, but majority felt that the sign was okay. It supported the shop, who supports the village in a big way, particularly of late, and we didn't see it causing any particular harm. As for Bucks County Council, the last time I spoke to a couple of councillors, there wasn't a great deal of interest in it. And maybe as part of this ongoing issue, if the applicant is minded to maybe write to Bucks County Council about it. I certainly don't think we need to move away from what we've already agreed upon, but I throw it open.
Okay, I think the point is, Nick, a couple of years ago, we had a lengthy discussion on this and did agree that we would have one sign for the pub and one sign for the village shop. That was minuted, agreed unanimously at the meeting, and that was agreed what would happen. The point that's being made is that the parish council at the last meeting reneged on that because a plastic sign has appeared on the green. It wasn't unanimous, by the way, it was majority, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any need for the plastic sign to be there. I voted the same as everybody else did to unanimously just have one sign for each of the two businesses. And it's nothing to do with supporting the business or suggesting that they're not important to the village, because they're absolutely vital to the village. That's not connected with the fact that the plastic sign has appeared on the green when we said it wouldn't.
Well, thanks,
So
Paul.
that's why the point's been raised.
Thanks for that, Paul. But a point of order, by the way, I did say, having mentioned unanimous, I did say majority.
That's right. Thank you.
Can I ask other councillors, officers, people here this evening what they feel? Do you wish to change your views or thoughts, or are you happy to continue with this agreement that we changed our minds after a couple of years and we've allowed this to happen? Anybody want to comment?
Well, I'm happy to comment, Nick. I mean, we did discuss it last time round. We discussed it fairly thoroughly. We put the pros and cons. There was Paul's point of view. There was the other point of view that it's small. It helps the shop in difficult times. It does put in business. We didn't, I don't think, mention the previous decision last time round. I can't remember, maybe you did, Paul. But anyway, there's absolutely no reason why, given different circumstances, the parish council can't change its policy. And I think that's effectively what we did by our agreement last time round. So I think we've discussed it. I think we agreed the position, and I see no reason to go over the same ground again.
Councillors?
I'd agree with that.
I also agree with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'll keep my position as before. So, but obviously,
So on a majority, those people in favour of maintaining the agreement we signed up to the last parish council meeting, raise your hands, please. Those against? So by a majority decision, with Paul voting against, we will leave it as is. Okay. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Finance, Robert. Hello.
Very quiet month, January, so very little to report. The procedures have now been, I think, John, added to the history file, so they're available for anyone who wants to read them.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to the report itself, other than to say that for the next meeting, if everyone is comfortable, I'll produce a draft of the year-end accounts so that you can get an idea of the shape and the content and the form of them. And given that very little will change in the last couple of weeks of the year, the likely outcome.
Right.
We do need to formally approve the 2 new procedures, the updated financial procedure and the new procurement procedure.
Was that not done last time, Helen?
No, it wasn't actually done. I
Okay.
watched it. Yeah, it got missed.
So shall we first, with a show of hands, Helen, vote to accept those procedures? Helen?
Yes, yeah. So if everyone who's in favour of approving those procedures could put their hands up, and then that can be recorded. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One final point from me. I've got an invoice sitting on my desk on behalf of Keith that needs the approval of the parish council. Keith preferred to get approval of everyone before it was paid, and that's for the signs that we were talking about earlier on the bike bridge.
Yeah. All those in favour of supporting and paying Keith for those signs, raise your hands. Thank you very much.
I can vote, but
You'll be able to get yourself a Big Mac now.
It'll be with you tomorrow, Keith.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all I've got to say, Chair. Thank
Anybody, any questions for Robert at all on the finance issues?
Nope.
No, thank you.
Okay. Reports from councillors attending meetings and outside organisations.
I'll just mention that whilst I've not attended anything, I should be taking a meeting tomorrow evening of the Community Board Freight Group. That's tomorrow. No, it's tomorrow afternoon at 2:30. If anybody wants to tune in.
Brilliant, thanks, John. There being no other reports.
No, there is one, Chairman.
John H has got his hand up.
Yeah,
John,
just to say that Ian and myself have attended the last 2 meetings of the No Expressway group, and things seem to be a little bit fluid at the minute in terms of there is still a pause on the Oxford-Cambridge Expressway, and the main area of concern was the possible publication of what they call a spatial plan that could include massive additional housing development right across the arc, somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million additional homes. Now, the No Expressway group are meeting tonight, and they are formulating how they're going to approach this. We did hear the last meeting that Ian and I attended that it was rumoured that we wouldn't get a new spatial plan for another 2 years, but already there's rumours that wasn't quite right. They may quite soon publish a statement of intent and then fill in the figures at a later date. So I think from our point of view, it is a big issue for our area, our village possibly, and various spin-off issues. So I think, well, there are 3 of us who attend. That's myself, Keith and Ian, and we occasionally share the load with one another, that we should definitely keep on top of that, and on behalf of the interests of our community. The other thing is that I did attend a meeting of the Transport Focus Group. That's Bucks Council, sorry, Transport for Bucks group, and we're now, I think you all know, quite actively engaged. They're reviewing communication procedures, the operation of Fix My Street, and I'm hoping that it is going to be in our interests to actively engage with that, to feed in our views on what they're doing and what we don't think is good enough. And hopefully it will give us a platform to talk about some of the very specific issues that are of major concern to our community, not least the absolutely deplorable state of the Aylesbury Road between ourselves and Cuddington. But
Okay.
That's work in progress following the last meeting.
John, thank you very much, and thank you very much for all the work I know you've been doing. And I've been don't always respond to the reports, but I do read them, I can assure you. And it's a load of work, a huge amount of work you put into that. So real big thanks on that front from all of us, I think.
Yep.
If I could just make a couple of reports. Environmental and Green Spaces group of the community board. I sent a brief email round summarising the work that is going on there. Basically, a small 100 grants for PC, for other groups in parishes, not PCs, and trying to establish the prospect of a network of library of things for borrowing stuff which people don't use at all or very rarely. And then the second one I attended was the local nature recovery strategy for Buckinghamshire. This is a pilot which is going to be carried out this spring and will report to DEFRA, and it aims to implement the recovery strategy by 2022, and they're looking at benefits and possible outcomes and the activities that will support them. And there is a website available, contact through the Natural Environment Partnership, Bucks and Milton Keynes, their website. You can go on there and add to that if you want. I shall do a note round this tomorrow, sending a bit more detail.
Thanks, Ian. Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. Okay.
Sorry, Nick. Just
yeah.
I suppose I should just mention in passing, just to thank the parish council for their support. We got a grant for the village hall. Prospectively, we need to send the receipt in, etc., for about £1,800 for some of the refurbishment on the playground. And I know you, Nick, have mentioned us looking at doing more work or putting more equipment there, but certainly myself and Antonia and Martin we'll look at that in the future. But we wanted to get this first grant for the refurbishment for health and safety reasons through, but then we'll get on to try and take a look at some new equipment and whether we can get some grants for that. So, but thank you, councillors, for your support.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. And yeah, it's a difficult one. And I can pass on a couple of contacts anyway, Keith, that came via sort of Cuddington, Ashenden, etc. There are grants out there right now for playground equipment. In fact, there's an organisation that it escapes my mind now in terms of what they're called, but they actually do the whole shooting match, lock, stock and barrel. They take a commission or they charge a fee for the work they do, but they raise thousands and thousands of pounds for people around the country getting play equipment in. And it just struck me that now we've got that wonderful village hall set in some nice grounds, and yet the play equipment is a little bit antiquated when you link it to places like Ashenden, Cuddington, Long Crendon, and yet we've got the jewel in the crown with Chuff. I suppose I'm just sort of trying to look after the future.
Yeah, if anyone's got ideas on who's listening or watches the recording, obviously, please input them.
Yeah,
to, myself or Martin or Antonio.
But thanks, Keith, and thanks, Martin, for the work you do anyway. It's very lucky to have you guys. Subcommittee, are there any reports from, oh, yeah, that's fine. Subcommittee decisions for ratification. I put these under this heading, I think, if you're happy with it, as a result of our conversation on the Zoom call recently. It was just to confirm what we were going to do about certain things. If we take the last one first, dog bins, I think now it's broadly agreed that there will be no further introduction of dog bins for the immediate future, because I think it's felt, and I think Keith, one or two of you made some good suggestions along these lines, that maybe what we should do is wait until we've seen the late summer, early autumn, as to what the issues may well be or may not be, and get some sort of evidence as to how vital it would be to put these in, or this singular item in, before we take any other decisions. Would that seem reasonable?
Yeah, agreed.
And I think, other observations have been, that there are some irresponsible dog owners who are just not clearing up within feet, literally 10 or 20 feet of existing dog bins as well.
Yeah.
So, having bins is one thing, but actually people using them, and I think, that's an open issue, how you encourage some of the more irresponsible dog owners to do that at this stage.
Yep.
Answers
Okay, so all those in favour, can we confirm for ratification? Hands, votes. Thank you, unanimous. Flooding, I think we've mentioned under the bridge at Chiltern Road, and we've agreed to purchase, and we've signed that off with the signs to Carol and Rob. We've also agreed that we would install I don't know what they call them, these, but a measuring stick, Anthony, is it?
Depth gauge.
Yeah, some sort of, I haven't looked into where you get one from, but I'm sure somebody does one somewhere, yeah.
It's online, there's loads and loads, yeah, even through Amazon.
Yeah. Anthony, would you mind picking that up as an order?
Okay.
I don't mean an order as in the military, but
Whatever you say, Nick, whatever you say.
I was quick to qualify that, Anthony. And I don't think, are we happy to give Anthony approval to spend? I mean, I don't know, this thing can't be costing much more than 50, 60, 100 quid.
50
So
quid.
are we happy to give Anthony the go ahead to purchase that item for us?
Yes, agreed.
Great.
Yeah.
Hands of that, show of hands. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony.
Chair, before we move off this, can I remind you that at the previous Zoom call, you agreed that somebody was going to mark the signs with ownership?
Oh, good point. We need an indelible. Yes, we need to find a way of badging the signs so that they are the property of Chearsley Parish Council and not highways, I think is the point, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay. Who knows anything about this? I don't know. Where would
Isn't indelible ink the best way? Because if any stickers will
just get pulled off.
will
Plates will just get unscrewed. I think indelible.
Well, if we can find out who the council use for their brown bin stickers, they sure as heck don't come off, even when you try and get the blessed things off. So if we get some stickers like that, I don't know where you get them from, but there must be stickers you could get that will stay stuck, come whatever.
well, could I be as bold as to ask Jules that she picked this up?
Yeah, maybe I should contact someone like Sign Wizard.
Yeah,
Like
perfect.
car decals, someone like that.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
Can I just quickly ask a question?
Yep.
What happened about the sandbags? Are they, like the weight?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because
Yeah.
I ordered them on Amazon and I've not seen them. So I need to just chase that. Helen, just make a note. I found some high visibility sandbags.
A sandbag?
Are you sandbagging, Nick?
I was trying to match colours, darling, you know, with your jackets and everything. I thank you, Jill, for reminding me of that one. I'll find a way of making sure those sandbags are coming or whatever. Yeah.
So they've been ordered and you're just chasing the delivery?
Yeah. They weren't, I mean, I think they're about 20 quid or something, but yeah, fine. Okay. The third point was slightly more controversial and in depth, is footpaths and gates. How should I lead this? I mean, we've had quite a few conversations as a group over this, and I think we've got to a point, and John, I know we've talked together, John Lewis, it may well be that you might need to prompt me or otherwise, but I think there's a great deal of concern in the village about footpaths in particular between Church Lane steps and, if you like, to the railway across the Haybrook/Dales land, and it really, you know, it really has become quite a talking point in the village, and it caused a certain amount of upset from people. And we're trying to find a way, and I've had discussions with Rosemary Dale, as you know, to see a way forward. And please bear in mind here, what I'm talking about is footpaths primarily, gates potentially, but nothing else. We're not discussing stars or anything else. But it does appear that, mixed with the weather that we've had, these paths have become incredibly difficult to traverse, use, whatever phrases you like. And not only that, because of the wetness underfoot and the mud and slush, potentially a health hazard with youngsters or even older folk that may fall or may go to grab outside and find that actually there's not only just wire, but there's also barbed wire involved. And so I think we're trying to find some common ground with the Haybrook/Dales about this. And I think the best way of doing this would probably now to construct a note which has been circulated to you all. And that should be then sent to Rose in the first place. I believe out of courtesy, we should be copying it into Mike Haybrook as well. Absolutely outlining our concerns, whilst accepting and recognising that, you know, they are the legal landowners of this area, but appealing to them as a village to consider our thoughts in the best interest of everyone that lived here and lives here right now. It's a sensitive subject. I think it can become quite emotive, but I think we've been quite balanced in our discussions, and including supporting the Haybrook/Dales from time to time in the matter. But nevertheless, we represent the parishioners of this village, and I think it's important that we get this down now clearly in writing, just what we think, and appeal then to see whether things can be approved upon for everyone living in the village and the landowners as well. John?
Yes, Nick, if I can just follow up on some of that then. So we've got an item 12 on the agenda relating to fencing around the fields, which you mentioned that we've got some thoughts on some wording there, and I think the intent maybe under item 12 was to deal with the fences themselves and their impact on individuals and the landscape. I think that's slightly different to the subject of the footpaths and the gates, or let's say the gates in particular. And as you mentioned, the topics of conversation have mainly been the footpath down that runs on the field parallel to Church Lane, and specifically the gates or the stiles or the whatever at either end of it. So there's those entrance points, and I think we spent a bit less time, but nevertheless mentioned also the entrance between Paul's meadow and the lower field that runs down to the river, where Paul has decided that he doesn't need any gate or any structure on his side, but on the other side of the little strip of water that runs down there, that's more Rosedale's responsibility and what goes there. And my sense of our discussion was that whilst we didn't reach any firm conclusions, to start with, there were some voices that suggested that we really weren't overly keen on metal gates, in that they don't really go very well locally. There was also problems with stiles in those locations, twofold. One, because some of the users are not as agile as they perhaps once were, and stiles are a little more difficult to negotiate compared to a kissing gate. And secondly, Rose seems to have a preference for putting wire under any stiles that she might erect to prevent dogs getting through. And I think we've established that lots of walkers do walk dogs. That's part of the reason they walk. And also that it's been accepted in law for a long time that walking your dog is an accepted method of using a footpath. And I think we've also seen some legal suggestion that it's up to the landowner legally to ensure that gates are maintained in a way that, or so the stiles or gates are maintained in a way that facilitates walkers, which would imply facilitating dogs getting over these things as well. So I'm not sure we reached any conclusions. If I were to draw a conclusion personally, and I'm just speaking personally now, I have a strong preference for wooden kissing gates in these locations, wherever it's possible, followed up by wooden stiles without metal to stop dogs and maintain them as low as consistent with their application. I think that in the field I mentioned, between the lower field and Paul's meadow, there seems to be no great need for anything there because of the stock fence in Rosedale's field now. There is no stock in that field. And so no risk of any animals, or no need to stop any animals getting through, that is apparent to me at least. So I think really we need to consider stile stroke gates on the one hand, and maybe that falls more naturally under this item. And then the wider issue of fencing and its impact on the landscape and users, we might leave just for a moment to look at under the wording we've got on the table for item 12.
Thank you, John. Any other thoughts or comments?
Well, as a dog walker, I have been very grateful for the the work that Anthony's been doing, in particular working with landowners to put gates in, because getting over stiles with dogs, and if you go to now the Winchenden, there's still many of those, is a real pain. You end up having to carry dogs half the time, and when the stiles are wet and slippery, it's quite unsafe. So I would support that. Gates absolutely, if possible. That's been a trend that certainly Anthony's really helped do a lot for in the village. So I'm very supportive of that position where possible.
The only comment I'd make is, I think, Nick, you were saying at the start, the main issue we were discussing this evening was the fencing, and I would have thought the other was a secondary one. I thought we were parking that one for this meeting, but maybe I've misinterpreted that. But I think the main thing we want to discuss was the fencing around the fields and the points you raised in your opening comments.
Sorry, I'm not with that, Paul. What are you saying?
As opposed to you actually said would like to not discuss at this stage the fences and the styles. You really wanted to focus on the fencing that's being put up around the fields. That's what the proposal relates to, the matter that's being considered.
Well, obviously, I've not made myself clear. I thought I'd made
in which case he emailed us.
Well, for clarity then, let me reaffirm. I wasn't talking about stars at this particular moment in time. I think there have been quite a few views on that. But the key issue that's being raised time and time again, essentially, is between the top of the steps at Church Lane, that first field, and the narrow walkway, footpath, and then the other field that goes once you go across the railway line. There used to be the old Willow field.
Yeah.
Towards not those two areas are the ones that have attracted the most comment in terms of the narrowness of them. And the state and the condition of them.
Yeah, that's the point. I was just supporting you exactly what you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
John had moved on to the other issues, which I thought we were parking for this, because the resolution that's been drafted relates to the narrow walkway, as you quite rightly say, down to the railway line, which I think,
So if I could just clarify, then I agree with you both there. I would just say that I think that's what we've got item 12 on the agenda for, rather than this point. And I assume, therefore, this point under item 9 on the agenda that talks about gates, is why I've introduced this subject of gates.
All right, okay.
Okay, so my proposal is that we have a very open and candid piece of correspondence that we all sign up to, hopefully, and we share that thinking, in particular with Rosedale, so she knows exactly what our thinking is, and copying Mike Haybrook in, to see if there's any room for improving the situation.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. So sorry if I went off topic on styles or whatever, but yeah, the fencing, definitely. I've heard lots and lots of comments. It's when it's muddy and slippery, and if you happen to slip and put your hand out, you'd lacerate it on the barbed wire without a shadow of doubt. I stopped going up there when it's wet and slippery and muddy. So it's effectively stopped me walking that way, whereas I used to walk that way all the time when I first came to the village. So I consider it quite a shame, and I know that opinion's shared by most people, in fact everyone I've spoken to who has walked that in the past, and maybe doesn't.
I think the comments that, I actually raised this subject about 18 months ago when the fencing went up, and reflecting a number of people's views around the village, and their view was that the fencing that being put up was actually spoilt the landscape, which had been in existence for many years. And someone actually mentioned yesterday, they said, that combined with the fencing that's now going alongside the railway line has really changed the landscape quite considerably. So that's from the visual aspect, that's quite clear. But the point that that's the real issue, I think, now is that we said right back at the beginning that the walkway was very narrow. It is very dangerous. My next door neighbour slipped over on it. You've got barbed wire alongside it, and there are matters that have to be addressed. And I
think in for balance, Rosemary has been quite open to discussing the potential use of wood chippings on the paths, and also the purchase of some wooden rails that would go alongside and cover up essentially the 2 strands of barbed wire now. So I think that the thought process is moving on. However, I think there's still a question around whether, as a parish council, we would consider contributing towards the cost of that. I think that's quite another matter, because as has already been pointed out in law, it is a responsibility of the landowner to ensure these footpaths are kept in reasonably good order and can comply safely with people passing through them. So that's probably for another day. As for the iron fence that's gone up the sort of the Chearsley Berlin wall, I mean, it's a completely different matter at the minute, as I'm sure you know, Paul.
Yeah, no, I was purely passing on a comment from a parishioner.
Yeah. And
first we had the fencing alongside the fields, and now we've got it alongside the railway line.
And we're currently in negotiations and discussions, and have got involved with Ian Kelly. I think I've circulated the note, who's the parliamentary assistant to Greg Smith, our MP, who's currently speaking with Network Rail and Buckinghamshire Council with urgency to understand what the heck is going on with that particular fence. So we'll deal with that one probably separately. So I think, I don't think Rosemary's being completely, if I may use the word belligerent, but I think she's exercising her right. And unfortunately, from a moral point of view, and this is a personal view, we need to find ways and means of looking after all the people in the village, whether they're landowners, walkers, dog owners, or whatever. There has to be something that can be arranged sensibly to achieve that. So my proposal would be, if we had another conversation, John Lewis, to fine tune the correspondence we're thinking of sending and circulate that as a final draft to councillors, and then we send that on to Rose.
Okay.
John?
Okay, I mean, we have talked about this at some length, and I thought we'd agreed some wording that we were going to send.
I think we have, yeah.
I know Nick earlier on, so other people won't be aware of this, it's just a brief conversation that Nick and I had. And anybody listening won't really know what we're talking about here, but one of the requests that we were going to put up was that we're asking Rose to take action to alleviate the muddy conditions. And I think, Nick, we suggested adding to that, for example, increasing the widths of the paths.
Yes.
I think that was the only change we were going to make to the text that everybody saw and agreed. Yeah. And if everybody now can picture how that fits in and is happy to agree it, then I think we've got an agreed text that we want to send.
That was the tweak. That was the tweak I was talking about, John.
Yeah, I thought it might be, but we might as well sort of,
happy with the tweak.
It came to, for those of you who use Wadston Manor, you go from the Welcome Centre on the walkway up to the chateau. They have a pathway there that's probably 2 and a bit times the width of the ones we have that we're talking about in the fields. They are covered in wood chippings and they're regularly maintained, give good foot conditions. And it works perfectly because what you also get is a right and left. You get an up and down sort of traffic flow. And actually, particularly in these difficult days, it's an even bigger bonus. But what it does is it gives you this width, a sense of more freedom and a sense of you're not hemmed in necessarily. And that's what I was trying to achieve in talking about widening the post. And also it means that although you've got to remove posts on either side and fencing, it's not renewing, it's using existing, and you just have to use some posting and railing sort of devices to achieve it. But on that basis, John, if you're happy to tweak that as discussed, as a suggestion.
So absolutely, Nick, I'm obviously willing to do that. And my small concern here is, and I don't know, obviously, whether Rose is listening or not, but if we now send this note to Rose, she will see the wording, but anybody else listening won't know quite what it is we're talking about. And I wonder whether there might be merit in just reading out what this is going to say, since we have all seen it and all agree it, and then we can formally agree the words and put them in the minutes, if everybody's agreeable to that. If not, obviously you'll say.
I'm not sure, John, how, if I may say, in terms of protocols and appropriateness, I'm not sure that's a good thing, because if by any chance Rose or Mike Hayward are not listening to this, we're effectively communicating our correspondence to them, to the wider public, without them seeing it. Which, if nothing else, is a bit discourteous.
Willing to go with the majority.
Thoughts, councillors?
I personally think it should be sent first. I agree with you, Nick, on that.
Yeah.
I think the spirit of what we're saying has been discussed openly, and
yeah.
Sorry, John.
No, that's fine.
I'm trying to find my sensitivity balance scales.
I won't overly weight them. I'm happy to go along with.
I'm as focused on this as everyone else, and I'm as concerned, if not more, sometimes. But there are levels of behaviour, and we've got to get it right as a parish council, because then we'll be accused of white-anting things and going behind people's back. Oh well, it's great. You can publicise this to whoever you want, but you didn't tell me. You just got to be careful, I think. So, are we all agreed in that with that approach?
Yes.
If we are, raise your hands, please. Okay, unanimous. Thanks, John. We can natter, or you'll tweak and. Okay. So that's it for now. Sorry. No officers' reports. None. No, there's no officers' reports. Paul, tree and birds matters.
Yeah, I've just got one item. I think we discussed it. Well, it's come up a couple of times, but the Hicks, or the edge of Hicks Path, we're proposing now. In fact, it's 10 o'clock tomorrow for those that have signed up, and anyone listening. We're probably one volunteer short, but what we're planting basically is called a native hedge in between Hicks Path and the new house that's being built at the bottom of is it Bernard's Close. And for those that are interested, the native mix is hawthorn, viburnum, field maple, and hazel, which should grow a very, very nice hedge. And it's already the whips, as they call them, are over 1 metre high. And I put them in water just before we get into the meeting, so they're going to be ready to roll tomorrow. Very exciting. Overall cost of the parish council £118.08. I use my discount at my own supplier, and that's including VAT as well, so it's less than that. I suppose we got our VAT back. Yeah, I think it's a good resolution. We all know the history of the hedge that was there that disappeared about 15 years ago. And we'll have a nice one reinstated, which should look very nice on the edge of Hicks Path there. Might actually give us a little bit of a leg up actually to other little areas that might appear around the village that need something. This I think is a very, very good solution, particularly with local help rather than having to get contractors in to do the work. So total cost of £118, and I think would just like to quote that the chairman did offer to ensure that there was wine there for the team when the work was finished, and just in case he forgets that one.
I never promised anything of the sort.
Oh, I think we'll give you a bottle of wine for the helpers. So there's 2 or 3 of us that are going to be involved there. In fact, while we're doing the work there, I've also agreed to cut down a tree for Fenella that's overhanging the road. So it should be a good little working party tomorrow. Hopefully it's going to be dry, but the ground as of today was diggable, whereas it certainly wasn't 24 hours ago. So just amazing what the temperature change has made for us. But look forward to seeing those of you that have volunteered to tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. And as I say, if probably one extra villager would be quite useful to give a hand there. Thanks for good to see everyone getting involved there. Great.
Thanks, Paul. Good job done there. Really good job bringing.
Actually, I think it was Nick. I do take that back. It was Charlie that offered the wine.
A written apology is fine, Paul. I have to be careful of my position as chairman.
Don't bother in your post.
I mean, people may be assuming that for some reason I have this amazing wine cellar as compared to your vast quantities down there, and probably spending their money. So I'm glad you corrected that.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles, for offering that as well. By the way, so,
yeah,
and also for a volunteer to help tomorrow.
Good.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, I think that's all we have. Unless Ian's got anything to add on my partner in crime there. Anything else, Ian?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you, Paul. Fencing, have we covered that, John? Fencing in local fields?
We have.
Yeah, okay. Parishioners' question time. Have we had an? Oh, sorry.
Parking in Shops Lane. Nick.
Yeah.
Sorry, item 13.
Yeah, I know. Just coming back to that, Paul. Thank you. Parking in Shops Lane. John Lewis.
Okay, well, this is a fairly straightforward matter. It relates to the vehicle that is parked on the corner of Watts Green and Shops Lane, Watts Green, Shops Lane, fairly frequently. And the proposed solution to that problem from Aylesbury Vale Housing Trust, which was to dig up most of the bank in that short stretch of Shops Lane between that junction and Church Lane and turn it into a parking lot. And we talked about this. We were unimpressed with this as a solution to their problem for providing parking for their tenant, and have drafted a letter to them saying as much, which Nick has now sent off to the Housing Trust. Basically, it says we've not remotely interested in that as a solution, and you'll have to find some other solution to your contractor's problems. And that was sent, and I think, Nick, you issued to us a response from the Housing Trust saying that they had passed that message on to the tenant, and I think that's where it sits.
Yeah, this is obviously quite a difficult one. I've met the young lady in particular, and had a discussion with her about a week or two ago about this. And I did explain to her sometimes the difficulties of what we face right now in the villages and the sunken lanes. However, she did say to me that one of the reasons for moving here was that she had an agreement with Aylesbury Vale Housing Trust that they would provide her with parking close to the house. It's a difficult one. It's not our concern as such. Ours is to protect the verges and the lanes, as we've said. Although I had sympathy for the young lady concerned, it's really an AVHT problem. And they need to get to grips with this and understand if they're going to let tenants come into certain properties, they need to make it quite clear that there's not necessarily parking with it. So I'm not wishing to pass the buck or anything else, because we'd love to see parking improve for a lot of people in this village, not just with AVHT. And so far we've been able to do it, and we've all said that at some stage we're going to have to make this a bit more of a focus to see if there's solutions. But for this particular case, I think we've stood firm for the right reasons. And my apologies to that young lady, who I will try and pass the door at some stage the next week or two, and again have a face-to-face conversation.
Nick, if I could, it would be fair to anybody listening just to point out that in our letter we did mention the three reasons why we were not happy with the proposal. One was because of this being the last uncompromised part of stretch of sunken lane in the village.
Yeah.
Our general policy of opposing interruption of the sunken lanes wherever we can, and the fact that Shops Lane and the adjacent bank are in the conservation area. So they were fairly solid and almost historic reasons why we have taken the position we have.
Yeah.
And we did also add that despite all that, we are mindful of the difficulties of parking in the village in general, and that we're willing to work with AVHT to see whether we can find a solution that's acceptable to everybody.
Yeah, and it was a bit disappointing, the response I did get from Jerome, because it was a very curt note saying, thank you very much, I'll let the tenants know. Which is disappointing, because I was hoping they might say, look, can we get together on a call? Can we make some options? Can we make some recommendations? Can we get your thoughts and try to get some progress as a group? But if I was reading between the lines, I just felt they thought, well, job done, we don't need to do it now. That's the way it is, end of story, which, if that's being a bit unfair, I'm sorry, but it did feel a bit sort of, incident over, let's move on. But that leaves the tenant still parking their car in a difficult location that comes with problems in terms of people getting past, or issues that we've seen with fire service and all the rest of it. So sooner or later, it's going to have to be addressed. Okay. Thank you. Parishioners' question time. I think I've got that right, Paul. Has anybody emailed in or phoned in or Zoomed in or anything?
Nothing on the live chat on YouTube.
There's a Mrs. Weaver, apparently. Councillor Weaver has been on.
I'm just Helen.
Yeah.
Could you just switch Paul Bown off?
I think Helen can actually.
I don't have the power.
Keith can.
I'm not a proper officer, so I don't think I can.
Oh God, it's good we can smile and joke. It's about Groundhog Day sometimes. Okay.
Didn't you just say that?
What?
Didn't you just say that?
Has he woken up? Is that deja vu?
All over again.
No, that was very good, Martin. It was quite quick, actually.
You've always had a weird sense of humour, Paul. Come on. Come on.
Seems all right to me.
Yeah, must surprise you too. God. Anyway, items for information, please. Any items for information? If I go for John Howard.
Yeah, just very, very quickly, Mr. Chairman, just to let the village know that the devastation that was wreaked on the Horse Chestnut Junction, we did try and pursue. We had a couple of witnesses who said it was actually caused by an Arriva bus, and there were some double-decker buses rerouted through our village on the day in question. Well, having had been in contact with Arriva, they have now, I think I sent it to everybody, I don't know whether you've had a chance to look at it, but evidence that indicates that it wasn't actually their bus.
Yeah, saw
that carried out the damage, and
it was already there. Yeah.
The point I guess I want to make to everybody listening is that, and I know it's not always possible, but if we see anything untoward and you have your mobile handy, just please take a photograph, because it means we've got a much more ability to make a stronger case. I'm not saying that Arriva were definitely the culprits, but in terms of what our eyewitnesses saw, it was the bus, but they can't be 100% sure, and we haven't got photographic evidence. So just to make that point to everybody out there, that if you see anything untoward and you have half a chance, just take some photos, because it makes it so much easier for us to prosecute the case. What I will, however, say to Arriva is that could they please, if we get road blockages again in the future, it's just lunacy to get their buses. I mean, I know, people need to get to destinations and everything, but if they come into our village, on a revised route for a double-decker bus, they have to perform ludicrous manoeuvres around the horse chestnut. There must be other ways around it. So even though I will accept we have not demonstrated that the particular bus was at fault, I would urge them, please instruct their drivers not to divert through Chearsley and there will surely be similar cases again in the future. So, but given the sort of the high profile of the damage they cause, so at some stage, I think maybe if we could get get that damage tidied up. I mean, we all know our verges get ravaged during the winter, and around the village they're in a dreadful state. But maybe in a few weeks' time, I know we've got a new arrangement with a bit more support now to carry out these jobs, but just to tidy up a few of the verges, pending hopefully a longer term solution in certain locations in the village.
Yeah, I think just to be, I don't like to be fair to Arriva, but I do think on this occasion the dash cam did demonstrate quite clearly that the damage was already there before their bus got there, to be fair to them.
Well, that bus, but there were a number that came through. So but I mean, again, I'm not in a position to dispute their evidence. I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
No, sure.
They certainly, when one of their buses went through at about the time that our eyewitnesses saw this, the damage had already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we've got to like that now. But folks, if you get a chance, take photographs. Makes such a difference.
Thanks, John. Keith?
But a question. So what's happened to the CCTV discussion? Where was that left? Because that precisely reminds me of one of the reasons for having it, so we can sort of see when there are incidents in the centre of the village.
I've got the paperwork here. It's gone absolutely nowhere so far, Keith. Again, it's from my point of view, with other stuff going on, it's a low priority. I know there are benefits, but it's a big meaty topic.
Sure.
And I did send a note out to them just saying, could they come back to me about the offer of the control room, being able to, can we make a safe social visit, etc. So I'm waiting to hear from
Thank you.
the chairman of Long Crandon Council. Yeah. Right. John Paul, any items for information?
No.
Do you approve of that, Martin?
I do, yes, and I have the same answer.
Thank you, Martin.
I won't ask you, Martin, then, because you've got nothing to add. Thank you. Good to see your cheery face.
Good to be seen.
Good man. Right, Jules.
No, none from me.
Keith?
Just one point. I've been very busy this month and probably the next month, but so there's been not much progress on the Chearsley carbon neutral working group. So that's down to me. And I need to check, Derek, Alan offered to help out and get the ball rolling there, but I need to get a message out to the village and say what that is about, etc., etc. So that is moving somewhat slowly at the moment. Just to put my hand up and say it's on the stack, and that's
okay,
it.
Thanks, Keith. Great.
Related item, including Derek Allen's name, the formation of a plan for restoration of the Stockel. Derek is putting a draft document together. He sent out the first draft and asked us for comments, and he'll get a document together as a means, I suspect, partly for raising funds for the refurbishment.
Okay, brilliant, Ian. Thank you very much. John Lewis.
Just wanted to mention the annual village meeting. We didn't have one last year because of the pandemic hitting everybody hard, and all that sort of thing was scrubbed. I think that this year it might be feasible to do it. We and many others are now much more used to working in remotely as we are this evening, and it strikes me that it could be feasible to hold a large-scale open Zoom session for anybody who wanted to participate, with presentations potentially from those who wish to make them, or brief talks about what they're doing. I feel that we could probably largely replicate over Zoom the sort of normal annual village meeting that we have. We'd have to play with the technology a bit, but I think it's feasible. I mention it now because we normally have it in lieu of our April meeting, which means if we're going to do that, we need to make the decision at the next meeting in March, which means we need to do a bit of work between now and then and firm up whether we're going to do it or not. And it may be useful if anybody listening has got any views on this one way or the other, they drop them through to us. And then maybe we might wish to have one of our informal meetings to plan in a bit more detail what we're going to do if we decide to do it.
Yep.
Keith, just on the technology front, how doable is that?
I think it is doable. Yeah, we could have, we can have everyone on mute by default. I think the problem is if you get, if you got 50 people and there was lots of background noise, it becomes very unworkable, which is why we do it the way we do it. But I think for a one-off, I think it's definitely worth trying. We can set it up so everyone comes in is muted by default, then unmute to talk. So we try and keep the level of, and give some instructions round and ask people to stay on mute if they're not speaking. But I think, I'm with John. I think it's worth it for a one-off to try and have more inclusivity, more real-time live inclusivity. So I think it's
other thoughts.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea, and definitely Gardener's Question Time, they've got a virtual audience. I don't know if it's on Zoom, but it'll be something similar to that.
So I sort of get the feeling that people think this may be worth a try. I'm certainly not against that. The only thing I think I said earlier when we spoke, John, was I wonder whether we should insist upon, questions being submitted in advance of the call, even though people could join us on mute. But then if we were to pose the question in the session and then unmute the individual who'd submitted it, it gave us time to sort of understand what was going on and how we might want to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's absolutely no harm in doing that. The question would be whether we then actually allow or forbid spontaneous questions on the night, and I think that's got plus and minus, and we probably need to chew over that in a bit more detail before we make a decision on it.
So would it be worth a few of us getting together at some stage in the coming weeks to have a broad chat about the principles and possibilities?
Yep.
Does everyone want to be involved in that discussion, or should we be just 2, 3, whatever people?
I'm fine skipping it. I mean, I'm in favour.
I'm fine skipping it.
If I'm too busy, that's fine. But I think it's my position is absolutely all for it.
So somebody like John, myself, Martin, you would like to do it, or Jules?
I'm very happy to join in if I'm required. I'm very happy if you want to keep it down to 2 or 3.
What do you think?
Nick, I'll put a diary note round and invite people to fill it in. Dates available, dates not available. Attend if I can. Don't want to attend. I'll give some options and then we'll see what comes back.
All right. Excellent. Well done. That's great. Elections coming up. And I think apart from Martin, I've seen no other responses from councillors as to whether they would like to continue standing or standing down or whatever. But I think we need to make some decisions on that fairly quickly. Is that reasonable?
When's the actual deadline for submissions?
Was
I don't know.
correspondence, wasn't it, that we put out?
No, I won't recheck.
It was. I don't know. I would guess it was around the end of March, early April time, but I'm guessing a bit there.
I just had the paperwork through from Bucks Council to book the hall for the elections.
Okay. So do we need a drop dead date for people to respond? Do people feel they need to respond, don't need to respond? I mean, what's the thinking?
I think it's an individual matter, Nick, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think everybody here is entitled to declare their position or not up to the date for closure of nominations. And equally, I think certainly I, and I think probably others on the call would implore others in the village who feel they might like to contribute to the effort of the parish council, please to put their names forward. I think what we would all like is an election so that whoever ends up on the council, whether it be some of us or not, has got the support and backing of the village to do the job, because that's one of the most important things.
I agree.
The deadline for submission of nomination papers is 8th of April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, fine. We'll leave it up to individuals. But I think you're absolutely right, John. And I think encouraging other people as well to put their names forward is really, really important.
Is there something we should be putting on the notice board, or has it already happened? I'm sorry if I've missed this on the way through.
I think it's all a bit early days at the moment. We've not had anything through from Bucks Council yet, but I know last year when it was supposed to be happening, things started coming through, but it's a bit early still, I think.
Okay, so it's only 6 weeks away, but as and when something comes through, it'd be good if it goes on the notice board so that people know the way, the way in which they approach the application.
Yeah.
Let's hope we do.
So the actual election's not for another 3 months, is it?
No, but the date for closing is
that's just over 6 weeks. Yeah.
John H.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe I've got it wrong, but I do recall seeing something with some sort of templates for advertising, for parish councillors to stand. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I haven't seen it.
You remember anything, Helen?
We got a load of stuff through last year, but we haven't received the nomination.
Oh, not for this year. No. Okay. No. I'm probably thinking of that then. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking now. Anything else from our officers? Finance, footpaths, environment. Yeah. No. Okay. Well, that's amazing. That's it's basically coming up to 9 o'clock, if not 9 o'clock already. I think that concludes the items for the meeting. I think, thank you very much, everybody, and glad. Keith.
Sorry, I did put a note out on the blog spot actually on 1st of February with a link to the the paper.
Oh, I think was that the stuff that was sent through from Carol at Balk?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was. We put it out. We put it on the blog spot, and I put a note out onto the.
Yeah, it said there's a nomination pack and everything. So I think we can put that around again. But we put a note out with a submission form or a nomination form on the 1st of February.
Okay.
It made a big impact.
So it's time for us all to go up the bell now, is it, Nick?
Well,
virtually.
The virtual bell.
Isn't it a strange old world? Crikey, Mose.
Maybe
I'm
not
not sure.
We can.
Looking back, I don't know how people's views. This is just informally now, but if you want to go, you want to go. And if people
I'm just going
to
to end the stream now. Then.
Yeah, end the stream. Thank you very much. The official part of the meeting is finished, and thank you very much for everyone watching.